Hi, it's Nick Burke here from propertyinvestmentprofessionals.com.au. This is the third in our 5-part video series called How to Buy Investment Property. Before getting to this step, we've determined our goals, we've made a plan, we've been qualified for finance, and determined the area in which we want to invest. Firstly, in our area, we want to look for new properties. New properties present a number of advantages over old properties for virtually all investors. Firstly, they're going to be maintenance free or almost maintenance free during the first few years, when they'll be sparkling and brand new, and whilst they come under the builder's warranty period, which is around 6 or 7 years. Secondly, we need to remember that a property investment is for the long term. We're going to be owning this property for 10 years or more. So at least at the end of, say, 10 years, you'll own a 10-year-old property, which still should be fairly low maintenance. But if you were to buy, say, a typical 25-year-old property, then after owning it for 10 years, it's going to be 35 years old and may well be starting to provide you with some maintenance headaches. But by far the most significant advantage of new property over old property is the depreciation that you're able to claim against the income tax that you pay. The Australian Taxation Office enables you to claim back the tax that you would otherwise pay due to the loss that you're making on a property, but in addition you're able to claim depreciation on the building and the fittings within the building. And it's this depreciation that, if handled correctly on the right property, will enable you to reduce the holding costs of an investment property to $100 a week or less. So you want the property to be a new property. You also want the property to be fairly typical for the area that you've chosen. It's usually not advisable to invest in something outrageous, not the cheapest, not the flashiest, something new and appealing to the most common sort of person in that area. So 4-bedroom houses in family areas, for instance, or if you've selected an inner city area, perhaps 1 or 2-bedroom apartments in those areas. So once we know to look for a typical new property in the area we've selected, it's time to go bargain hunting and look for the best value property that we can find that fits this description. Most investors get this wrong and start by looking for the cheapest property in an area they know. But planning your investment the way I've outlined is going to achieve you a much better result. Once you've selected a target property, then it's time to make the investment, which is the subject of the next video in this series, which you can find at propertyinvestmentprofessionals.com.au or by using the links on this page. Hi, it's Nick Burke here from propertyinvestmentprofessionals.com.au. This is the second in our 5-part video series called How to Buy Investment Property. We start this step when we've determined our goals, we've made a plan, and we've seen a mortgage broker to determine our borrowing capacity. Next, we need to ascertain where we're going to invest. Not what property, but what region. Many investors choose to invest in their own suburb or nearby so they can keep an eye on their investment property. But this is highly unlikely to get the best result. What's most important is to select an area where you're going to be able to achieve good, strong capital growth, as well as to be able to invest affordably for somewhere less than about $100 a week for most people, and to be able to do this safely, keeping the risks to an absolute minimum. In selecting where to buy investment property, we balance these 3 goals by identifying with 7 major factors. Firstly, infrastructure spending, which has been proven by history to be the prime factor for creating capital growth. Population growth, which creates more demand for housing from both buyers and renters, which means increasing values and increasing rents. Job creation, preferably highly paid jobs so people can afford to pay sufficient rents to keep our out-of-pocket expenses to $100 per week or less as investors. Diversity of employment across a large range of industries. This minimizes the risk of property values decreasing. Limited supply of new properties so the demand continues to outweigh the supply and pushes values and rents upwards. A large population base, which is less risky than investing in a small town. And finally, amenity, such as schools, shops, cafes, parks and transport. Once we've determined what we consider to be the best area with all these factors in Australia present, or as many of them as possible, it's time to consider what sort of property within that area is going to be the best. And that's the subject of our 3rd video in this series, which you can find at propertyinvestmentprofessionals.com.au or using the link on this page. Hi, it's Nick Burke here from propertyinvestmentprofessionals.com.au. This is the first in our 5-part video series called How to Buy Investment Property. The first thing you need to know is to start with a goal. It's important to know if you aspire to own just one investment property or whether you'd like to grow your portfolio and accumulate several properties, because the first investment property will differ depending on the answer to this question. Once we've determined our goal, the next thing is to make a plan. A plan is the difference between a dream and a goal. A property investment plan starts with a financial assessment of your borrowing capacity, because this will determine whether you can invest now or whether you need to wait. And if you can invest now, you may be able to purchase one or possibly even more properties. So it's important to know where you're starting from, what your goals are, and what your plan is to get from where you are now to where you want to be. Your borrowing capacity will be ascertained by a mortgage broker, preferably one who deals with investors a lot, and like the rest of us, is an investor themselves. Once you know your borrowing capacity, it's time to move on to the next step of where to invest, which will be covered in video 2 in this series, which you can find at propertyinvestmentprofessionals.com.au or using the link on this page.